Well, welcome back to the trailer project. And I was going to take and just unbolt these connections, but if you look really closely, they welded the nuts in place. So that's not possible to be removed, which is very inconvenient. So, and I would just remove this one, but then they welded the bracket, or this little tab, onto there, which doesn't do me any good either. So probably just going to lop these off and, try to get as much of the hardware separated as possible. But we'll see how it all plays out. Alright, so here's what we're doing. I'm going to pick just an arbitrary point here, because this was pretty close to centered up. So we're going to call center of this 102. So that is my master mark. I'm going to mark the other side. Alright, everything from here on out is going to reference that mark. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but it needs to be a lot closer than it was before. So that is the master reference. Okay. I'm going to have to consult my diagram to get all the spacings correct, but yeah, we'll get this progressing. So according to my drawing, which is verified by the oh Jesus, no wonder this thing's so far off. Okay, so 29.5 is the magic number, center to center, for this axle setup. Okay. And again, these are just my reference points. I'm going to make sure that no matter what I do, forward and back here, that everything's going to line up with the original, or with the front of the trailer. So I don't end up with any nasty surprises in the end. Back here. Okay. And let's go do the other side real quick, and I'll bring you back when we're all done. Okay, so off camera, I lined up the center point of this bracket with the reference mark I put on the frame. Kind of flushed it up to the outside roughly. And then I marked inside the holes and on the outer edge. I'm going to take a die grinder and very carefully make sure this is nice and polished everywhere where this thing's going to sit, so that way I get a really good weld in the end. Alright, so I have the brackets just roughly positioned, centered up with the center hole over my reference mark. Now I'm going to measure from the front of the trailer to this leading edge and make sure the two are in exactly the same position, and then we'll continue that. We'll tack that in place, and then we'll continue setting the next set of anchors. show ease of numbers, we're going to call that leading edge 100.5. Check this side. 100.5. Yeah, let's get the welder all warmed up and get this tacked in place, and we'll double check it right before we tack it. Alright. So those are exactly where I want them to be. Let's grab the next set, move down the line. Now we're just going to double check for the leading edge again, because that's our reference, so that's 71. And 71, right on both. Well, as you can see, we got all these hangers welded in, and you know, some of the stuff I'm not even worried about cleaning up. It'll be fine. No one will care. No one will ever look underneath this thing. But you know, for all intents and purposes, everything's nice and solid. So I guess I'll throw a little bit of primer on these spots and start setting the axles back in place. And I do have to fix one thing on the axles. I just got them sitting out of the way here. So on this one, this hanger, the bolt got stuck in the little bushing in there. So I'll have to probably grind that off and then try driving it out before I put it back on. But we'll set this one back in place before we get that far. Well, like so many things on this project, you get in there and you realize how far out of whack stuff is. But had to drill a new alignment hole because that one is about an inch out of position. So hopefully it'll be able to bolt up the axles now. Well, I think we're gonna call it a wrap for tonight. Got the axles rehung, all the hardware in. I think I'm gonna shoot a little bit of primer on everything, but let it sit. Get some help and put the tires back on. Flip this over tomorrow. So thanks to everybody for watching. Stay tuned.